All set.
Can you make it the whole screen?
Sure.
And can you wait until we have people to bring in?
Sure can.
Thank you. Hey, did you need an agenda?
Yeah, probably, I have a couple of things I was just gonna pass around.
Okay, good.
All right, I see Zoom user guest. Does not have a name.
You wanna, promote them and see who it is and then
Sure.
move them back if they're not?
Zoom user, we're just gonna promote you to a panelist just in case you should be on the committee. That's requested.
Cynthia, hi. No,
Mine's not even quite late.
Okay. They declined, so I.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Just a watcher.
Yep.
So Emily, do you have 15 minutes to stay and monitor
Absolutely,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
NBTSC. Doesn't have that ring, Amy.
I know.
And we in the clerk's office would appreciate it if you did not use those when you're posting notices.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense. We're not gonna call it that.
so many letters that we have no idea what the committee.
Tired.
Like
battered.
T-Jock?
So this, let me just pass these things out.
There is an
Gloria.
Amber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, Amber, I'm going to promote you to be a
I made a
panelist.
copy. And then this is the, when the town became
okay.
in 1711. Great. Return of the deed. So if you each want to take one.
November 6th.
I know, yes.
Old calendar.
Old
Guy
calendar.
Foxton.
Is that what you sent out?
It's in November.
Yeah.
Gotta be remembered.
I did send that out.
Yes.
This was
Were you
from
there?
Gloria. It's 2D.
Oh, never be.
Okay.
Were you there in
Anybody need-
2010? When we opened the box, the
No. I
kickoff?
didn't. No.
This is great already.
Amber, can you hear us?
I can. Hello. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
All right.
We can't see them, but we can hear
Are
you.
you gonna put on your video?
Oh.
Hi, this is Cynthia. Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Let me just move it down a little. Hi. Let me take my glasses off so they don't glare.
All right, I'm gonna start this. This is my gavel. I'm outside the Needham Branding and Town Seal Committee on Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. I'm Kevin Keane. Do you want to go around and introduce each others to each other?
Yes. So I'm Kate Fitzpatrick. I'm the town manager.
I'm Amy Nelson, I'm the Director of Communications and Community Engagement in the Office of Town Manager.
I'm Teddy Eaton, town clerk in Needham, Massachusetts. For a long time.
Gloria Bryce, Executive Director at the Needham History Center and Museum.
Dave Lindy, I'm a principal at Emerge Design Group, in live in Needham.
Cynthia Ganong, I'm a member of the Human Rights Committee.
Amber, would you like to?
Hi, I'm Amber Autumn Sun. I am daughter to Chief Caring Hands of the Massachusetts Native Praying Indians. And thank you for including us. And I'm happy to speak on behalf of our tribe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Marshall Davis. I'm a member of the Needham Historical Commission.
You know. Okay, and we're with Topher Fox is not here, right?
Right.
Okay, we're gonna follow the agenda, we're gonna review the charge and the composition, then I turn to Gloria. And we'll do the inventory case and funding and then the schedule. I'm gonna try to keep this meeting to 1 hour. My car turns into a pumpkin. Okay, reviewing the charge, we get to do three things. We get to design a logo for the town. Examine the seal and revise as we think fit. And then third, we get to decide what Needham means, which is actually a really cool conversation for town to have. And then all this has to be able to get past the muster of town meeting. In probably May.
October.
And then.
You talk about that in. I think we need the whole year.
Right, and then, eventually we'll get to is doing a creative brief, the whole committee, and talk about what we think we want this things to look like. And we'll go there from there, but everyone, please speak freely, speak honestly, and, your voice counts.
Can I have one thing?
Yes.
So, just backing up one step. Kevin had brought to the board that the quality of the seal graphically on our, not that one, but, as we reproduced it a lot of times, isn't great. And then we started talking about when are we supposed to use the seal, and are we using the seal in places where it might be better to use some sort of brand or logo that people could recognize? And should the seal be reserved for the most formal documents? And I think that's where the board, do you agree with that?
Not 100%.
Okay,
Okay.
what's your thoughts?
The town seal is supposed to be used only for town business.
Right.
But if a committee from some restaurant wants to use the seal, that's a no-no.
Okay, yeah,
I have the, original metal plate of the town seal. I think I tried to copy it.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Topher. I'm trying to get on, but I can't, but I can hear you guys.
okay.
And I just have to drive my kid to her classes and stuff like that. Everyone who showed up as attendee or whatever.
Yes,
Okay.
So you were virtually present.
I'm literally present right now.
Back when you can.
Well, the class starts at 5, but I gotta drive her around.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm listening.
So to Teddy's point, nobody wants anybody other than the town to use it. The question is, in the town itself, do they belong on sweatshirts? Or, modern water bottles, or should some other logo be used instead of that? So, that's where we're talking about.
Right. Is that, yeah,
I just want to clarify, so that means we're actually looking at ending up with 2 images. A cleaned up or possibly revised town seal for official business and a branding logo for all other purposes.
A branding logo for some other purposes that
Yeah.
we'll be recommending. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
you may say that Bruiser should have the seal. I mean, I would love to hear
Yeah.
your feedback on that. but-
But this will be, we'll end up with 2.
Yes,
Two
yes,
images.
yeah. At
One-
least for the most informal things, there should be something other than the seal.
and one of the benefits is that the seal doesn't have to have everything. Because the logo doesn't have to have everything. We can sort of take it down a notch and say we can make it work for what the use is.
It's much like a lot of colleges and universities have the official seal, from its founding. Then they've got, any school, BC, BU, they all have it, so it's kind of doing the same thing with us, because right now, if someone wants to use the town logo, it is only the seal.
Yeah.
And so they kind of do their best, and then I think, there's plenty of other things where, I'm gonna put whatever font I want to put on, and that could be, go from the high school to street signs to, whatever type of thing, so it's a way to rein it all back in.
And we're hoping that this group will have some suggestions, and our consultant, when we get them, on consistency of style for the town. So that, if we're looking at letterhead, what are the recommendations of, some of our departments have profession-specific seals, or logos, or both, and more logos, I guess. And so, how do we tie those in? How do we show consistency that, if you're getting a document, it's from Needham, even if it might be Park and Recreation. There's a lot to go over.
Are you gonna be hiring a consultant for branding?
Well, we're gonna go, Kevin wants to go by the agenda, so that's number 3.
Oh, all right,
Sorry to say it. The meeting's not-
Number 4.
You
Okay,
wanted to get out of here, but.
Yes.
wow.
yes, and I will report back at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Gloria,
Okay,
do you have a history about the seal?
I do, but kindly, Teddy circulated a lot of it in advance.
Yes.
So, the official story of the seal, nearly all of which doesn't actually involve the seal, was reprinted from, this book, Town and City Seals of Massachusetts, volume 2, which is, I think, what, 1940 something?
Yeah,
1951.
Been around for a
It's
while.
been around for a while.
Is that our first seal, 51?
No, our
Okay.
seal, okay, so the seal itself. Get my years here.
It's 91.
The seal's on 1891. The town decided in 1890 that it needed to, that should create a town seal. This was only a few years before the Mass General Bylaw mandated that towns have a town seal. This is, I'm sorry, let me put that, my piece of paper. So the town directed a committee of town meeting to look into this, they hired a designer in Boston. And in 1891, they presented what is still our town seal, which was passed by town meeting. And basically, we talked about, it does a lot of work. Okay, so first of all, it has the name of the town and date of incorporation. It has the two crosses, which indicate that it was part of the established church. It has Nohoyden more properly Manhattan, handing over the deed and to the town fathers. He's standing beside his teepee. We're gonna go into this for a second. On the banks of the Charles River, in the distance of which is High Rock. And in some versions there are seagulls and in some versions there are not.
And Bill
Sometimes they're
Picker.
clouds.
Sometimes they're clouds, sometimes they're both. The event that's being depicted is the creation of the 1680 deed, the so-called Nohoyden deed of 1680, that deeds the land that is now Needham and Wellesley, so Dedham north of the Charles River, to the incorporators of Dedham, with the exception of 40 acres in Hemlock Gorge. The deed is written from William Manhattan and his siblings. And it's for a piece of land that belonged to his mother's family. As I said, much is going on in this. The oak is probably the station tree, which is one of the boundary trees. It could be the marked tree, which is also a boundary tree.
It really is a marked tree.
There was really a marked tree, yes.
Was it over there near marked?
It was at the intersection of Mark Tree and High Rock. Where the red house is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big old oak. Yeah, I mean, you used oak trees and things as markers because nobody could ship them.
And what's a station tree?
Station
meaning
tree
like
is
station-
it's
Yeah.
similar, it was on the border of Newton, and another a similar boundary tree. There is much, wrong with this graphically, there's much wrong with this, iconography wise. Teepees, as we mentioned earlier, are not Massachusetts dwelling structures. It's a 1890s white artist view of, what a Native American interaction should look like. So among the things we're considering, as we look at this are, accuracy of depiction, not only the cultural details, but if you look at, High Rock, which is this giant Mount Fuji in the background. The Charles River looks like the mighty Mississippi, so there's issues like that. As well, and also just what the centrality of this event, is this the pivotal event in the founding of the town? Is it the event we want to depict? Are there other ways we want to depict this event, or do we want to look at something a little bit different? So there's a lot of freight being carried in this image. Anything else?
Any questions?
Has anybody ever worked on it or talked about updating it before, or has there heard anything?
No, I mean, I think in my experience, which is now, 20 something years, the only time we looked at making a change was when it was colorized. And one of the issues at the time was this was very poor quality. I think this is actually the best image we had.
And what is the colorized image used for? Where, I mean, I've seen it on the police patches have it.
Yeah, I don't know who has it officially used.
I don't think it's
Official.
So somebody did it other than.
Yeah, I think we just did it, to make it
Appropriate.
also to make it a little, it resolves the image a little bit more. Because you could actually ends up reducing some of the detail, but it's not official. It's not official image and it's not an officially adopted image.
Teddy, you might know this, so the seal itself, it sounds, if it's painted by the Commonwealth. Or if it was telling all towns to do it, is it sort of like? Kind of like our, it's, we doing something into the Commonwealth, they wanna see the seal because they know it's officially us. Type of thing, is that how it was originally used?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
so-
mean, it was
so what I'm-
before me.
What I'm thinking is what. I'm just wondering what modern day uses. Is this mandated, this has to be on certain documents or things like that, because again, I see it as. It's not so much. Maybe we don't change the seal's the seal because it's an official something. And it's just, there's a seal and a logo, then it becomes a matter of. This is official business, official town business, and then we just have to figure out what that is. Putting this on the trash cans, that's not town
Right,
business,
which
that kind of
is,
stuff.
yeah,
But like,
it's on the flag, for instance.
yeah, and I can see that, again, there's a ton of flags that's got the old one and the new one right on top of it type of thing, so it's a matter of like. How are those used, how's, municipalities, when it gets to like the fire and police. Do they have to use this, do they have to use that, what's, like, do they use that as an identifying mark that they're from Needham, or like, cause you can't read it, I'm sure, like, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bylaw says you may use it, doesn't say you have to use it. I think the colorization was for the tercentennial. Thinking about it now.
Really? Okay.
I think that's when we used it. I think that's when we used it.
Yeah, I do, I think it's worth, I really do think it's worth whether, just because it's the one that we've had before. Even if we reserve it only for the most official things, is it speaking our values? I mean, I guess that's the question, so I think that we'll recommend.
Yeah, okay, do you wanna discuss that now, or do you wanna hold that for another meeting on the whole, we can do a crit on it, as they say. Yeah,
Oh,
you know, do you wanna do it now, or do you wanna do it for another meeting? Or do you guys wanna let loose?
I think if people have preliminary thoughts, why not? We
Sure.
have time.
Okay, I'll start. And overall, it's actually kind of good. So I did a project for a client, the newsletter, and I had to look at all these town seals from state of Connecticut. Nothing against Connecticut, they were atrocious. They were absolutely awful, like. Artwork was bad, everything was just bad about so many of them, and they were sort of in Illustrator, and they were just. Seriously bad, so Needham actually is pretty good. I mean, the art is good. I mean, and it sort of has this antique quality that's I think has some value to it. I feel like in 1891, when they're doing it, they needed to make Needham more ancient than it was. So the two crosses seem oddly medieval. And a good Puritan wouldn't even have a cross.
It's very crusaders.
Yeah, it looks like the castle wall, call it.
Right.
So like, I'm happy to even like, do we address that? Tanya Needham, I really dislike that sort of English, old English calligraphy is kerned horribly.
Yeah.
Turning the space in between
Okay.
characters, so you'll notice it seems too spread out. But I get it, I wouldn't change, I would fix it and maybe not change that. Incorporate it, I think certain fonts are chosen for their font quality. And this font looks terrible in numbers, so 1711, if you look at it, it looks more and more just looks odd. Another font would be more appropriate.
Especially on a curve.
Especially on the curve.
Right.
The TP drives me bananas. There's also, it's crooked by a degree or two. I mean, the river is, something is wrong, and the guys are leaning back or
I
whatever.
thought that was the other three.
No, this is, it doesn't, it's not even a good TP, it's just bad.
The TP drives me bananas too, just an FYI. We lived in Weetus, and if there's anything to be fixed, start with that. So thank you for
Okay.
saying that.
All right,
That almost looks like a path to the T.
yes, and the path is.
It actually looks like two bananas.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm just, so I don't, that needs to be fixed. I think the two Englishmen look like they've been dressed by Disney. It looks like this is what we
I
think
did-
they wore. I wish we got more research on like,
What they really were.
what, like, it seems like they look the wearing fedoras, I don't quite get it. Nahoyden. I would like more research on how to, like, show him. To be honest, I'm not sure what he's wearing also, because it's either, I always figure he's wearing a shirt, but if you look closely, there's two nipples.
The version I had.
Yeah, no, I. double check.
Hey,
Yeah,
you notice that?
yeah, right.
I thought it was a V-neck.
That's what I thought too.
Like, I think it comes down to whenever they created this, there's like, oh, he just incorporated 1711. Well, I wonder what they were in 1711, and he just,
Here's our-
bloomers. Yeah, we'll wear bloomers, and we'll make sure,
Right,
the
So-
Native Americans got, if they don't put the headdress, and again, I don't know if the headdress is appropriate
No.
for everything, they could say, well, this was a ceremony, so they were more dressed up, or
right,
whatever it is, but you really feel like, I feel like the guy took a ton of license,
yeah.
just based on.
I think it's a very generic. Hey, look, here's an Indian picture. And honestly, a hey, look, here's a couple of Puritans. I mean, I think
Yes,
it's-
there's a halo.
Yeah,
And I would also, the other thing is, there's a certain dynamic that we're creating on this, is two English settlers and one Native American. And even in the first sentence of the deed, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Native Americans named. And it looks like, oh, there was only one Native American to give it all to us,
The
so.
last guy left here,
Last guy,
you know,
yeah, so,
you know.
so here you go, so I actually wouldn't mind, like in City of Newton, they actually have 4 or 5 Native Americans shown. And I think it shows that like there's at least, it's a different dynamic when you do that. And then the tree on the right. It looks oddly like floating, like, I don't know, it's like an itch you can't scratch, I don't know what
it's in the river, because it's in the river.
Thank you. So it's a swamp
It's
maple.
a tiny maple and it's in the river.
Right,
Well, swamp maples had lots of,
That's right.
lots of trunks, they didn't go up straight.
so that's my initial take now. And by the way, as I look at it more, it appears they're standing in front of water too. In the very foreground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
something's that.
Okay. That's-
Yeah,
If you'll
like
talk
the
that-
teepee is on a little peninsula leading into the water, because the water comes.
Can I
There's just so much
Yeah.
cross hatching, it's a difficult image to resolve.
Eddie?
Has anybody ever seen the documentary, the first, after the Mayflower? Amber?
No. Let's see.
After the
Right.
Mayflower. Was
Yeah.
that the 1620 project?
The first Thanksgiving, something like that?
And basically what they were saying is, that was the only good Thanksgiving. When the Indians and the settlers got together, I'm sorry, Native Americans, got together, they had come over, they had no food, they had no anything. And the Native Americans were very good at helping them, and they all got together and they celebrated getting through that first winter. From then on, it was all downhill.
Yeah,
Amber, the first time I just heard last Sunday about the Natick praying
Native Prairie, yeah.
group, and I didn't I had no idea it was still going.
We're not offended because that's the word Indian, and thank you for correcting yourself for properly addressing it as Native Americans. That's appreciated. We're not offended to be called Massachusetts Native Praying Indians because that's what we are and that's what we were referred to. And yes, we are a big deal. So thank you.
So, I mean, back in the 1600s, the settlers or the people that were starting to run the area, the European area, started taking away from the Native Americans. And they talked about they wanted to convert the Native Americans to their religion. And
Yes.
they were talking about the Native, praying. I'm not getting that right.
Native praying.
Praying Indians. If anyone could possibly watch this movie, it was excellent.
What movie was it?
It's called After the Mayflower.
Okay.
I mean, there are a whole host of issues with these deeds, which follow King Philip's War. To Teddy's point, King Philip's War is only a generation after the Mayflower. Metacom is the son of Massasoit.
Mhm.
So that's how rapidly the hostilities accelerated.
Yeah.
There was a period of time in which the Indians, Native Americans became ill because of the illnesses that were brought over by the European settlers. And, the powers that be wanted them to pay for the medical care they were being given. And what they wanted was the land of the Native Americans, and that's what they took.
After we gave them all the illnesses.
Yes.
Right, right.
The middle of a very long history of colonialism across the world.
And people who would like to know more about the native praying Indians, there's a website. Amber, would you recommend that people look at the website?
There is nativeprayingindians.org. There's a beautiful play that is called The Song on the Wind, and it's by Pastor David McAdams and the New Life Church. And it is the story of Wabin, who was our first minister, our first Christian convert who preached to the natives. And our tribe accepted Jesus Christ. We chose to be Christian Native Americans, hence the name Praying Indians. And even today, we still choose to be. There's that, and also my mom, Chief Caring Hands. If you Google her, you will know everything you need to know about us, myself, where we come from, and why we do things like what I'm doing today, because it's important. The seal, it's an artist rendition of what was going on at that time, but we all know different, and it's a matter of us making the decision of what we want to show now. And I think that's important because we've learned from it. We have learned. But yeah, so The Song on the Wind, if you're looking for something more just to educate yourself, it's a beautiful, beautiful play.
And what was your mother's name again?
She's Natixqua Chief Caring Hands.
Caring Hands.
If you just Google Chief Caring Hands or Native Praying Indians, you'll see.
Thank you.
We will. Homework.
No, and she
Yeah.
spoke, very reverently about, John Elliott, that he was a saint.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And I think, I haven't seen the movie you mentioned, but there are, as descendants of white settlers, our view of how things happened may often be different than how the Native Americans describe them. And there are people who see John Elliott and how he came to be with the Native Praying Indians and other villages here in a different way than those people. Like Amber, they are descendants of the remnant of people who survived the genocidal internment in Deer Island, 1675,
Yes.
1676.
1675. We were placed on Deer Island. We were left there for about almost a year, and we were basically left for dead. We couldn't have fires. We couldn't have camp. The idea was for us to die off so the settlers could have the land. And the Reverend John Elliott and his colleague Daniel Gookin completely commissioned this voyage themselves. They paid for everything themselves and brought the remnants of our tribe off of Deer Island. And that's what we come from. And through all of that, we still choose our faith.
Wow.
Now that John Elliott, our John Elliott?
Yes, our John Elliott, that's the
John
term.
Elliott.
He's all of our John Elliott.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and there, in my Quaker meeting in Wellesley, there's a woman whose relative had been at Harvard and was a colleague with John Elliott and was one of the people who went out on the boats to try to bring
Yes.
food and clothing, and our other ancestors, colonials, dumped them out. Oh.
Yeah.
Several
as they
times,
traveled. This
several
is all
times.
history, folks.
Yep, the
Actually,
Bible, he was solely responsible for translating the Bible. Yeah,
That was Elliot, right, who did that
yes.
with, okay. And, side note, you ever go to the Natick Post Office? There's a great,
The mural there.
Public Works PWA mural.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's really, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Very.
And
Yeah, that was done in the 30s.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that must have.
yeah, and
crazy
can
that way.
I say, following up with what Amber said,
Native
Chief Carrington-
children getting much more interested in sending mail.
That's right.
So you just take it, walking to the post office.
that sadly Chief Carringhan's passed from this earth in April, beginning of April.
Yes,
And a number of us in Needham and nearby towns had the opportunity to get to know her before that.
I'm sorry for your loss.
thank you very much. She left a beautiful legacy, and I'm one of 5, so we're here.
Good.
Anybody else have anything they really wanna weigh in on the, we will have plenty of opportunity.
Oh, can I just say one more thing?
You're the chair.
Two inner circle, yeah, that's true. All right.
Oh, I need to write this down. Yeah, that's it.
The two inner rings, I'm not sure how they move the ball up the field. It seems like a lost opportunity. Just when you go through, it's sort of like, oval by oval by oval. If you look at it, it's like, okay. The inner ring says, and the outer one, it's a cool design, but it's like, there's the inner Dan Brown in all of us probably thinks like there must be an opportunity to add something interesting.
I think that is imitation metalworking.
Yes, I'm thinking, you know.
I mean, think of it's the seal that you actually,
Yeah, and I get
that's a die that you
Yeah.
actually stamp in. That was a fairly standard,
the outer one, the inner one, so I don't,
Yeah.
like up close, I'm not quite.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
some countries where they still use the seal, like, but that's, if you're gonna have an official document from an individual person, they get out their thing with the ink and so forth, and they put their seal on
And
That's
it's
not
every
just-
day with the,
That's
what do you call that
Every
one?
vital record has.
The
a
notary.
Yeah.
Yes, and no, that's different.
Different,
it. A different
That's
seal.
not the town seal, it's a notary seal, but the town seal is on all our vital records that we issue to people and
Now,
the
that have-
paper imprint one, that.
correct, the
Yeah.
embossed one.
Does that have this logo on it?
Yes,
Oh, okay, so, wow.
yes.
And given all the scams and so forth these days, maybe it is important
Right.
that you have that way of authenticating important documents.
Well, many places won't accept a vital record if it doesn't have that seal on it.
Raised seal, yeah.
Well, I think part of it is like, or maybe 90% of it is the raised part, because that. Not many people have that,
Yeah, that's why you can't.
you know.
There's like one.
Right, yeah, it looks like a notary,
Two.
you still,
Yeah, two.
you know, when anybody says, I need to go to a notary, you're like, oh, just to make the paper move a little bit, because you know, otherwise you can print it out and then sort of fake it. I think the other thing with seals is you have, these guys are probably taking, what's a seal? Well, seal could be like a wax seal that they used way back when, you know, and then the same thing, when they got metal, then they're like, oh, we can just clamp and do a metal seal type of thing, so it was, you know, and what Kevin was saying, this is like this snapshot in time. If someone says, does this represent Needham? No, it represents maybe when they handed it over, he might not have been happy to hand it over, you know, you don't know what was the transaction, you know, it's just, this is sort of saying the birth of Needham happened when we got the deed, you know, from this individual and, you know, 1711, that's about all that it represents type of thing.
It's almost like, look, see, it's okay. He's handing it to us. That's kind of what
Right,
it looked
right.
like.
Legitimacy.
Right,
Yeah.
you don't see his
Yeah.
arm twisted behind his back.
It's given permission.
Right.
A
So-
lot of the town seals, you know, in the book, all of which date from the same vintage, because they all part of the same 1890 bylaw. Represent some form of this transaction.
Wow.
When you look at them, yeah.
Amy started collecting
Mhm.
for us, a number of Massachusetts seals, so we'll get that out, and
Yeah.
then several that have recently changed, and Natick is very recent, they were just in
Yeah.
that meeting.
Yeah, if you wanna get in,
Looking into changing their seal.
Yes, it's been ongoing for a
For a
while.
long time.
Yeah.
Contact with.
The state.
Stay.
if you wanna get into looking at ownership of land, I heard a, professor from URI, who's a member of the Narragansett tribe, talked about the meaning of land, and that there was, when settlers first came, there were very few of them, and they were taken in by the Narragansetts. They were kind of like refugees, and they allowed them to live in certain places. And what they meant by that was a kind of leasing of the land. People didn't own the land like property. And somehow along the way, there's more settlers came and things changed in Rhode Island, and it became, all these places they were allowed to live suddenly became an ownership thing. And it was, it's a very, anybody interested in that, I can send you the link to that talk, and I'm sure that there's a lot more, but the concept of the land. I'm looking over at Amber here, that what it means that you had these deeds. And it's what we all live with now.
Right.
We didn't have deeds. We didn't have property lines. We didn't have grids. We didn't have any of that. You lived where you were, and we were willing to share. But of course, when the value becomes the land, that's when the issue started.
And that's
We have
what we're,
GIS.
and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Needham as a bounded area of land.
Right. All right, do you want to move on to the inventory of this town? See, we'll get, if, by the way, we'll have this ongoing conversation. All right, we're gonna. keep-
We didn't finish this one.
Yeah, no, this is not done. And also as we, between meetings, as you think on it, just keep, we'll, we want to discuss it.
Yeah. Every time I'm in a room, I'm like, where's the seal? Well, there's two here, right? On the maps up there. If you're in if you're in Powers Hall, that's actually those corners, what do you call those? They're the shadow box, kind of. All right, in the
Yeah.
hallway.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the name of that architectural detail is. I have one in my office.
Wow.
But there's a lot of, there's a lot of long-term things, you know, all the cruisers, all the trucks. We started to try to not paint the trucks now and use a metal or some kind of plastic that can adhere to the trucks at DPW, so
Okay.
we don't have to have them repainted, but that's all. Trying to be proactive. Some of it's easy, right? Stationery, it's, you know, jackets,
Yeah.
things like that. So I think what we really do need to sort out by the end, and I'm hoping that we're gonna create a report
Right,
that we'll bring to the select board in the town meeting, that will have the history and the decision points that we made and why we decided, you know, where things need to be. Somebody came to my office, who shall remain nameless, wearing very proud to be wearing a bright shirt with a seal all over it. And I said,
Oh, my gosh.
and he said, "Do you like my shirt?" And I said, "No." But, you know, nobody said no, so we need to be clear on what is no, so. If you see anything with the seal that you haven't seen on the inventory, please let us know, because we're adding to this all the time.
and we see this as replacing it as we go. I mean, it's not a wholesale like, you know.
Well, literally, stationery is now, we don't even order it anymore, so that you could change overnight if you had, what do you call it, camera ready?
Yeah.
Whatever, so envelopes are a little harder,
Right,
but yes, otherwise replace as you go and put in the capital plan and.
right.
Anything electronic, you could, you know, if you decided, you know, let's say even on the website,
Yep.
it's like, well, we got the seal, then you literally could have the seal in a new logo. And, you know, do that, or if you had the, you know, one thing you could say about the seal is potentially, well, if we're gonna use it twice as small like this, we're gonna get rid of some detail. But when you start to do that, that's a whole other can of worms of where now they look more cartoony, you know, it's tough to boil this down. This might look good, really big, cause it's like sort of that pen and ink woodcut kind of,
Yeah.
you know, it looks old, and I think when it looks old and stuff like this. You can sort of accept it, cause you know, oh, that's the 1711 seal type of thing, even the topography and stuff, but like one thing that I would look at is. If I were to just get rid of the type.
Yeah.
and say, well, I'm gonna put in a new face. Well, it's gonna just jump out that this looks new. And we just kind of like slapped it on the old type of thing, just because, you know, even if I find a nice font that sort of, you know, works like that. I mean, another thing to maybe consider is, do you need the word incorporated? You could just put 1711, that's pretty much there, or, you know, INC, or, you know, that's, you know, I don't know if there's a big deal between established and incorporated. I mean, probably is technically.
Some of them say settled, so if you
Oh,
were
really?
settled earlier,
Yeah.
you're even bigger on your. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Framingham is settled as Danforth Farms in 16, whatever, and then it, you know, it's really.
It says that?
Yeah, it's some, yeah, settled, incorporated.
Yeah.
something like that.
Land taken.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Settled
that's
and
way back. when,
11,000 years ago by the Massachusetts tribe.
When Gloria's thumbing through this a little bit, and sometimes, you know, like you see Lexington with the Minuteman.
Yeah.
Now that's a natural one to say,
Yeah.
we have a Minuteman on our seal. And maybe, you know, he's standing on the rock or whatever it is, and then that could also be incorporated into a more modern logo of like a Minuteman or something
Right.
like that. That's an easy one. This one I can't see saying like, well, we're just gonna do the modern interpretation of American Indians and
Right, you don't.
these
grab it.
guys. Like, it just doesn't encapsulate who we are
Right.
now. But like you said, it's the, well, to hand the deed over, we took a visual picture and this is what we got.
Oh,
They're just sort of trying to see what Natick gave away. Since they were the Redmen until a couple of years ago, I imagine that they're still not unlike ours.
That was members of the native praying Indians who went to town meetings and so forth.
That was my mom.
Yep,
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
saying that that was offensive.
Yeah.
And the Natick brand, that is the, what is that? The, looks like the,
Yeah.
They're still working on theirs.
yeah, but there's something called the Natick brand, which
Yeah.
is,
I suspected it was, with John Elliott preaching.
Yes, and they got,
That's different than
oh my God.
and it's now
I mean,
water,
some of them are just like, they're so, thank you, Amy. Yeah.
yeah, they have a picture of a bridge with water going under it, which could be anywhere.
that. That's the
Yeah.
design equivalent of trying too much.
Yeah.
You try and put a narrative on the head of a pin.
Why does it end, so 1651 is probably settled and 1781 incorporated. Doesn't even say it, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, do you have the new one?
They haven't actually decided on the new one yet.
Oh.
It's like that.
Yeah, I thought they decided on the bridge over the water.
I
Yeah,
thought
that one,
I thought
with the
they-
three
Is
arches.
that the dam that's actually being removed?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there aren't three arches in the bridge, so I mean, it was actually done by a Native American who lived someplace like Oklahoma and is probably a wonderful young man and graphic artist, but what does it have to do? The other choices were a tree.
Absolutely nothing, Cynthia, you're right. Mom was definitely opposed against that new design. She was opposed against having the Reverend John Elliott taken off. And the current design, it doesn't depict anything. You're right, it could be anywhere. It's actually heartbreaking to see because Natick, that's the mother village. That was our first village. That was so dear to my mom's heart. And she fiercely advocated against having that design. But I do think that they're not completely done with it yet. So we'll see.
Yeah, evidently, yeah.
They're still,
That's really, yeah, I think the number one thing is it should be neat. I mean, it should be clearly about us, right? You know, that's,
right.
so many of them are a tree or a house. Or
I
like
mean-
Weston, it just says Weston Incorporated whatever year. I
Right.
think it's Weston.
And
They
then, you
didn't
know,
have money to pay back then.
and as for the Indian history, I mean, there's a lot of history, but I don't know if I want to see William Carter on there,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
and they're even gone, you know, so.
And how about William Baker?
I know.
I mean, we have lots of interesting history.
and also lots of women who lived here.
Yes, like half of them. would work.
And maybe there's another,
51%.
That's probably the only person.
and maybe there's other ways to remind ourselves of people who were important.
Well, I think, and this, you know, to Amber's point, and I think what happened in Natick or this, for this bridge proposal, is if you don't understand the history well enough and the history is complicated. We weave very simplistic narratives around it, but it's a very complicated history. You just become afraid to say, oh, if we put a Native American on the seal, it's gonna look bad, it's gonna look colonialist, it's gonna look, instead of addressing something truthful about the history and about the relationship. And
Exactly right.
that is the founding entity of Natick, is the Prairie
Right.
Indian community. So, you know,
We
instead
can't
of
change
saying,
history.
"Oh, you know, we don't want to offend anybody, so we'll be so inoffensive that we don't include anybody either. You know, instead,
Good
find a narrative that's inclusive and accurate and works in both directions.
Yeah.
I like that, inclusive and accurate, and works
Thank
in
you.
both directions.
Yeah, and as I look at this, I actually like having Nahoyden on there. I think it's not a perfect history, it's not a clean one, but it's a really interesting one. And it says our beginnings.
Completely agree with you with that. Thank you.
Learn more about him. He's an amazing and,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, he is
complicated person.
super complicated.
So, yeah, so
But,
learn more about it and find a way to make it work.
I would be happy to change the dynamic of it,
Yeah,
to say he's not the sole one, is of a community.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
that's great.
and, all right, and in the High Rock, that does not look like the High Rock.
Not the
I
one,
was just
not the one
thinking
that climbed.
It's like trying to do a historical event and also the natural environment and maybe one or the other.
Combination that
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's too much.
Maybe you need more of the historical than
Than
the
the nature.
natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think the river, the Quinnipiac, is that the,
When-
Yeah.
that's the, translation,
Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac.
which means curving. Yeah. That was, and the Algonquin.
Yes, and it is kind of true, if you ever canoe it up, especially up in Medfield, you feel like you're in a hall of mirrors. It's like you're going on, it's like we were just here.
That's true.
And it's how it is, yes, the name fits, and we are surrounded on two sides.
Yeah. Well, I really thought it was really interesting, Amber, thanks for sharing that your community wanted John Elliott on there. And you know, you just don't know what people, maybe it was the way the
Yeah.
trade that could have changed. Right? That could have been different.
Absolutely. We were okay with the mural in the post office too, because that's our history. And we may not like it, but that's our history. We can't change it. And the more we try to omit it, the more we're not going to know. And we know what happens when we don't acknowledge our history. We end up repeating it. But yeah, that's something very near and dear to our tribe and something that our mom and chief spoke often about, that we can't remove all of what happened to the natives just because we don't like how it looks now. It's our history.
But
I
we
wouldn't be
can-
on this committee if it wasn't our history. So it's appreciated.
But hopefully we're starting to do it differently by listening to your voice representing you people.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
Right, so the good news is that we were able to get a $50,000 grant from the state. I know. And I signed the paperwork today. They said 30 to 60 days, so, my thought would be, so we can hire a consultant, so we need to figure out, maybe at our next meeting, what our work plan might look like. And what we want the consultant to do, because, you know, we don't wanna go off in one direction and then not put it in the scope. And then at a third meeting, we could review the scope and then we would be, I think at 50,000, we may have to do quotes. See what happens, but, I do think there should be we definitely want community input. How do we want to use the consultant on that? Our our health department is currently going through a branding exercise. And so they hired a consultant who did stakeholder interviews to say, what does health department mean to you? What does it say? What makes you think of health? That kind of thing. We may want to do something like that and just even have some focus groups of people and, you know, consider what a brand might be, consider what the seal might be. And then actually create the art. So
All right.
this is a lot of
Right, so that's a good question. Who creates it? Do we hire someone with the 50? We do have someone at the table, David, who can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's why you need to get,
We always.
Okay.
So our tribe also has an artist that if you look in Hopkinton, she did a beautiful mural. So I would absolutely like to offer at least for her to do a rendition or a sketch or something. Yeah, if that's even possible. But yes, we do have a tribal artist. And it'd be an honor.
Everybody use that.
My thought was, and again, this is completely not fully formed until we met each other, is that we would get a series of options. We would keep talking to the consultant and say, this, we don't like this, this, and this.
Right.
Whether they produce the art or one of our members does, it's just
Okay.
that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is I could see. Because when you bring in a consultant, now you're talking sort of like, as far as brand, sort of like what's a brand strategy type of thing, they're getting into more of that type of thing, and it could be like, what's the brand hierarchy, and that the hierarchy starts to split out what would have a seal versus a logo, and it's that whole, and again, are we, one question, is this going to, if we revamp the seal somehow, could that become the all-encompassing logo? Could this do work for everything? Or they can
Yeah.
come back and say, we really need two different things because this physically can't operate on doing patches and
Yeah.
other things, and we can't simplify it. And to Amber's thoughts, we shouldn't simplify it. In fact, I look at this and say, one thing you could do is maybe, because they just pick up half the composition.
Yeah.
What if their heads were up more like here?
Mhm.
And then, you don't really need high rock, no one goes at high rock anyway, but is it?
And sometimes it's two mountains on some.
Right, and if you literally blew it up, it would kind of almost get rid of the teepee, like.
Yeah.
That doesn't really, all that teepee does is say, this is the Indian side, and this is the.
Yeah.
So there's, I think it's historically getting into like what the mindset was, and if it was bigger, then you could actually see more, but then when it gets bigger, now all of a sudden you've got, you just see this as figures, now there's facial and like, are people gonna does that look like John Elliott or whoever we want it to look like, if that gets complicated too, so it's a matter of like, is that worth a can of worms to do that type of thing? So I think that's what, and sort of when you bring it to the town.
Yeah, town meeting.
The town meeting. That's, again, I don't know if that's like a document, like, here's our report, we decide, we found that this doesn't work and we need to, like, what's the rationale? And that's there's more consultants that. A lot of times you have a brand consultant, they won't even do the artwork. Type of thing. They're just coming up with like, here's what your brand needs to do and blah, 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 and then, cause I've got a couple of people I work with where. They do that for, consumer businesses, and they'll determine who the target customer is, they'll do interview the whole bit. I don't know if we interview around with this logo to Joe Average Citizen, they're gonna be like, well, it just looks old and whatever, you almost can imagine what they would say. And I don't necessarily would say put, a logo up against this, there could be something where there's some cleans involved in this, and then here's our new logo, and it might, let's say it's got the cupola, or the town hall in it, because that's one thing that's gonna stick around for a while. And not to say, does that say Needham to you, and then like, what does that mean?
Right.
To, is that good or bad type of thing? It's like, well, it's quintessential Needham, it could be the building, it could be just the cupola, there's a lot of different ways to.
The library's already just their cupola, we can't.
Yeah.
Right. But even the library, you say all of a sudden, well, it's like, which side of the library, the older the high
And I
school,
think
I
that's the
always think
logo
of the
we
high
used for
school.
300.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll continue that conversation. We're gonna finish up with the meeting schedule because we have 5 minutes.
Right.
All right, do you
So
guys,
does this time work? It's the Wednesday at 4?
Amber, does this work for you?
Yeah, this works fine for me. Quick question, in the seal, there's the two colonists. Are they random or are they actual people that played a role back then? Or
It was a Dedham and.
who are they supposed to be?
They're incorporated, they're probably selectmen of Dedham.
Oh, so we
Okay.
don't, they're not, they're never identified as.
But they don't,
Dedham must know.
there's names in the deed, but these people didn't have names as to which one of those were.
No, it just says they incorporated Dedham.
Hey, Kevin, go down and get the.
Well, I
thing
mean-
From the river.
That's a good question.
They are probably Timothy, Dwight, Richard Ellis, and or Thomas Battelle, because they are the selectmen at the time.
Right,
They signed, they're the ones who signed, countersigned the deed.
oh, right, yeah.
But I think they are just, selectmen.
Representation.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Sarah.
Just curious.
Maddox?
Sarah, that's a different deed.
Okay. All right, cool, so,
December 13th.
December 13th,
Okay.
And January 10th, does that work?
We have a board meeting or anything?
you do at 5 o'clock, in the History Center Museum. But we could end, we do it at 4 and.
You do your board meeting by 15th?
Okay, and the same for January?
January, so December 13th and January 10th?
At 4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, December 13th, January 10th. Right,
Okay, so next time we will hash out the scope, whether we want art, I mean, we need, whether we want artwork,
Yeah.
final artwork, or we just want artwork ideas, but the hierarchy of branding is a great part of it. I have seen consultants who do that, and they'll sub out the actual graphic designing, that could be something that we could put in. And then I'll bring back in January, the draft scope that we could approve, and then we can also keep talking about what we want it to be,
okay,
what we would like to see, and Amy and I will find some more of that nature work and send it out. They have hired a consultant recently, and we saw, for instance, a range of brands, anywhere from kind of I don't know, it was like something geographical, but then it was an N and.
Yeah, so I just went to their website, they have not yet finalized it, they're still.
Okay.
One of the ones that I love, I have to say, is the Green Needham logo, if people haven't seen it.
Oh, it's- yeah.
Can you pull it up? Is it a leaf?
Yeah.
It's a leaf, but the veins of the leaf, once you know, are clearly Great Plains, Dedham, Highland.
Is
It's so awesome. I don't know who did that. Do you know?
Was it you?
No.
Can you blow one of them up?
Don't put me under pressure, man.
Yeah, that one.
All right, there you go. Okay, yeah. So it's simple,
Oh,
It's
I
the
never
leaf.
realized that.
So
but it's,
I just thought it had odd things.
it's a chocolate, it's a map.
to keep so this is Dedham. So Dedham, Highland, Chestnut, Chapel, Great Plain, and then that.
Pickering.
Pickering.
Yeah.
It's just, no, I'm not saying that's what we would do, but I
Right, no,
thought, what
it's really an eloquent,
is eloquent.
it's just like.
There's, again, I've done some stuff for schools where it's. Not so much the logo for like the school, sometimes it might be a capital campaign and we'll take a stained glass window like that. And,
Yeah.
it's like some architectural detail or something that's not, it's,
It's got like a.
it's familiar to everybody who's around it.
Yeah.
Everything, like people could say, well, until you kill all the trees out back here, it's like the Needham maples and stuff like that, so. I might, I'll do a little looking around at, like a lot of times you'll look at. What's Natickton, what's Wellesley news, you kind of look at surrounding towns and sort of see what's going on, and you might. Find one that, they went through that operation, and here's what they came up with, and just to sort of say. This town that only used one yet, here's one where they.
Amy's working
use
on
both.
it in the
Yeah.
jar. We'll get there.
That'd be good.
It probably produces.
So are there while you're looking, find if there are any towns
Okay.
Jenny.
that had input from indigenous
You
people.
said you got sworn in, so.
I'll fax, I'll scan
Real
it.
quick,
You sure?
Be there somewhere. I'll,
Yeah.
I'll find it. I just have an unsigned one. That's why I.
Okay, yeah, no, I did.
Okay, I
yeah.
believe you.
You weren't there, your assistant did it.
I think I have a wedding fire.
oh my God, congratulations.
Not mine.
Oh,
We need a motion to. adjourn.
yeah, real quick though, Amber, the tribal artists, could they just sketch something rough for like next meetings or a point of reference? They could.
Yeah.
This is something to look at to. is-
Maybe a mural, we could do a mural, maybe like.
Yeah, well,
Native did.
it's Talitha, right, Talitha? Yeah.
Okay,
It's Talitha, it's my niece. It's White Dove, my sister's daughter. She's wonderful. Her degree is she's in sculpting, but she is a phenomenal artist. She has a background in stained glass, and she's part of our tribe, so she understands it inside and out. So yes, I will be happy to speak with her and have her do a rough sketch and email it out to everyone.
just pencil stuff like that, but not,
Yeah.
yeah,
And-
whatever works, just.
And her mural
Oh, yeah.
is in Hopkinton.
Hopkinton, yes.
Okay. All right, you guys, we need a motion to adjourn. Anyone wants to? Oh, thank you.
Second.
All right. Oh,
You have
wait,
to vote.
we have
roll
to, a roll call because
Yeah, oh,
we're
you-
virtual. All right. Gloria.
Aye.
Cynthia, thank you.
What are the names of people other than
Yeah.
I?
This-
Cynthia,
Aye, yes, Amber.
Amber Autumn Sun.
Okay,
Oh, yes.
what's this, right?
That's a yes.
Yes, yeah, okay, Marshall.
Aye.
Yes. Chair votes aye.
Yes,
Aye, yes, all right, thank you, we're adjourned.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Report,